Do you guys remember that time long ago when there was a period when we got a noticeable amount of visual novel anime adaptations? I've been watching anime since 2013, and I can remember these particular shows that stuck out to me. While I can recall these shows, the quality would not live up to the expectations of the actual visual novel, due to its production quality, or the most likely reason, the lack of story content required to fully unlock the potential of the original visual novel. But we are now in a thriving medium where the anime art form has skyrocketed in quality. So let's think about the possibilities of those adaptations or how they would fare in the modern age of anime. Welcome to the August Tale, and today I'm going to revisit 5 visual novel adaptations that I've watched long ago and attempt to remember how I felt about them and how they might fare in today's age so that you can think about your own past experiences in visual novel anime adaptations. Out of all the certain developers' list of visual novels, I had approached this one with optimism, but had dropped out very confused. I'm talking about Rewrite. Rewrite is a visual novel produced by Key and got an anime adaptation in 2016 with 2 seasons. Now, when it comes to Key anime adaptations, these shows can be a hit or a miss. Either you'll get a popular hit like Clannad After Story or Angel Beats, or you'll simply get an average anime like Charlotte, or in this case, Rewrite. When Rewrite was first announced, it got my attention because Key productions are a rarity nowadays. Like others, I was waiting for the next sensational feeling I got from Clannad After Story, Angel Beats, and Little Buster's Refrain. So I went in optimistically with no expectations. And oh boy, I think I was scared of how worse it could have gotten. To be honest, I never finished the first season of Rewrite. I was just so lost in what was happening in the story overall. The story introduces a lot. From its initial world building, to its supernatural narrative, to the cast of characters, that it was such an information overload that I ended up dropping it. Like, the most I can remember is a very small girl, a student council, there's 2 fairies, a horde of werewolves, and lots of trees. Either way, it's a blur to me now since it was so long ago that it aired, and there was probably more interesting stuff airing at the time. Speaking generally, I don't think that Rewrite did that well overall. It's a shame because I want to say that there's a cult following of Key fans out there that say that Rewrite is their favorite Key work, and there's a part of me that would believe them. But from what's given right now, I don't think the anime adaptation truly did it justice. And that's typically the case of most anime visual novel adaptations. There's a lot of information to digest that it's hard to compress all of that into 24 or 12 episode series, and still understand the core of the work. Sure, it might have gotten 2 seasons, but how it started gives off the impression of it trying to get through all of the story's content. Well, on the bright side, there's an official localization project of Rewrite currently at the time of this video, and once it's out, I'll post a link to the Rewrite visual novel in the description down below. While the anime adaptation had deterred me from finishing it, I'm willing to give Rewrite another shot. If you read Rewrite before, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below about how you felt about the anime adaptation and why to recommend Rewrite. Now, let's go even further back to a show that was by no means remarkable, but to those who have watched it, memorable for all the wrong reasons. Let's talk about a romance anime that was aired in 2010, a show so infamous for its contents, and one of the very first shows I've watched. Yosuga no Sora. Yosuga no Sora is a visual novel featuring the Kasugano twins as they travel back to the rural countryside after the death of their parents, where they attempt to reconstruct their life with each other. Like with Rewrite, most of Yosuga no Sora is a blur to me, but compared to Rewrite, I actually finished this one, all the way to its ending. And funny enough, it's the thing I remember the most. Yosuga no Sora's most iconic and soul-defining moment. Thinking back on it, at first glance, I would consider Yusuga no Sora to be fairly mediocre. I don't think it was that exciting drama-wise or even of high production quality. So why am I talking about this? There's some part of me that can't help shake the feeling that this visual novel is unironically decent. Of course, this is the same mindset where people try to recommend extremely cult works, trying to convince people that it's really good, despite overall general opinion. You are free to openly disagree with me about this. There's a part of me that thinks that given proper care to elevate the show with high production quality and tight pacing, it could have the makings of a really good romance drama show. Well, at least as good as an incest romance show can get. Now, let's change the scope. Let's talk about a visual novel in which its creation essentially created the birth of a franchise empire, Fate Stay Night. The visual novel that began Type Moon and Aniplex's empire on the world, spanning multiple series, productions, real-life collaborations, and games. I feel like I don't even have to talk about what Fate is because of how widespread the Fate franchise is nowadays. Most people know about Fate through its anime adaptations by Studio Ufotable, such as Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, Heaven's Feel, or Fate Zero. However, this was not the first instance of Fate anime. Fate Stay Night was originally adapted by Studio Dean back in 2006, in which Studio Dean adapted the Fate route, the very first route in the original visual novel. What's the problem with the Studio Dean version? Well, when you have something like this, and compared to this, you might be wishing for the former. I started Fate in the era of before the Ufotable Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works came out. And like many others at the time, it was recommended that if you wanted to get into the Fate franchise through anime, you were told to begin with Fate Zero and go from there. Which I did. And then I watched Prisma Ilia, and then everything went downhill from there. To this day, Fate fans of the route will ask for a legitimate adaptation of the original Fate route in the same Ufotable style and fashion. Type Moon and Aniplex does have the funds and capabilities to do it, and Ufotable will perform spectacularly like always. But whether or not they will do it is entirely up to their whims. That is, when they're not dumping loads of money into Fate Grand Order and forgetting about Type Moon's other works, or not localizing the original Fate Stay Night visual novel. While not as mainstream as Fate Stay Night, this visual novel is still considered widely popular, especially within the visual novel crowd. Let's talk about the Fruit of Grisaia. The Fruit of Grisaia got its anime adaptation in 2014, and I would say that this series was well received, as the following sequels, The Labyrinth of Grisaia and The Eden of Grisaia, quickly got anime adaptations and visual novel localizations. I had never heard of the Fruit of Grisaia before, and the anime adaptation was my first introduction into the series. This was way before I knew the Fruit of Grisaia was a visual novel, and what eventually led to me being interested in the franchise, reading both Labyrinth and Eden, and then Phantom Trigger. While appearing to be a simple school life visual novel, each heroine has particular circumstances that only a man named Kazumi Yuji can resolve with his stoic nature, sharp tongue, and unorthodox skill sets. And damn it, I found him and his backstory very entertaining. Like with most other visual novels, readers would argue that the adaptation didn't go deeper into the individual routes of the heroines. But for what the anime presented, I think the story captures the main aspects of each of the heroines' stories well enough. That said, I have not read the original Fruit of Grisaia visual novel, but the anime has certainly captured my attention, and if the anime was meant to advertise for the original work, it succeeded in that right. One of these days, I'll actually sit down and read the original Fruit of Grisaia visual novel and properly review the series. But that's for another time. Maybe after Phantom Trigger finishes. And for our final visual novel, we are going to talk about a very old adaptation in which recently had just been announced to get a remake pretty soon. Our final show is Higurashi no Nakokoro ni. If you hadn't heard of this show, you probably might recognize it from all of the past recommendation articles of horror anime with this exact face. Higurashi was a show aired in 2006 about a boy who moves to the countryside, but soon he and his friends get wrapped up in a murder mystery and missing person case after their town's festival. I had watched the show back in 2013 and I had a very good time watching this, as there was some legitimately good nightmarish moments in the show. I do think that the show had definitely aged with its current art style, but I would argue that the show's soft moe look helped with the show's eventual tone contrast from light and fluffy to gruesomely horrific. I believe that the show was effective in creating the mysterious town of Hinamizawa and slowly building up the tension with each episode in each arc. I haven't read the original Higurashi visual novels, but that's a series I plan to take on in the future. Maybe when the remake's new release date gets announced, as at the time of this video, it is undetermined. The Higurashi remake is being produced by Studio Passione, and they have already released a promo trailer for the show back in March, but not much has been revealed yet. Based on the preview and the character designs, I'm not sure how to feel about this. I'm kind of attached to the original Studio Dean version of its slightly deformed moe art style. That said, I don't have any current expectations of the staff announced, but then again, I can't get disappointed if I don't have any expectations of it in the first place. Now, I would like to say some honorable mentions. These are series that are placed here because of community word of mouth, and while I haven't fully checked them out myself, I feel that the fans behind these particular works are pretty vocal about their anime adaptations, and I thought I would give them some recognition here. Let's see here, there's the Chaos Head fanbase, in which I've heard that the adaptation wasn't that great. I think the Diaz Irai anime had some attention, but was very quickly forgotten. The Umo Neko anime I've heard from some people to avoid like the Black Plague, and people pretend that the Tsukihime anime doesn't exist. I hope I reminded you of the fun memories of these past visual novel adaptations, and if there's any particular adaptation that you remember back in the day, let me know in the comment section down below and what your thoughts on them are. I would love to hear them. And as always, subscribe if you liked the video and want to see more. Check back every week for new content. For more of my thoughts and the most up-to-date news on videos, you can find me on Twitter at TheAugustTale. Check out some of my other anime visual novel reviews on my channel playlist, links are in the description down below.